Okay, what I'm going to do is make a video that shows you how to make a self-priming pop can stove. There's several versions of the primed, ones that need a primer. They're good, they work fine. But they're not as good as this one. This one allows you to actually put the stove on a surface and place any kind of boiling cup, pot, can, anything directly on top while it's burning. There's 100 videos out there to show you how to make this thing. My friends asked me to put one on just to say that I did one too. What do you need? Razor blade. I get like a 100 pack of these at Harbor Freight for like $3. I got this 1/8 inch piece of plywood as a nice smooth base, smoother than my work table. 1/4 inch piece of cedar, which can be a 1/4 inch piece of anything. And this is a 3/4 inch scrap block of some sort of furring strip. Miller Lite, beer of choice. I have 2 cans. You'll see why in a second. Start by putting your 3/4 inch block on top of your 1/8 inch plywood or whatever surface you want. You can just go on top of the bench too if you want. 1/4 inch block. Razor blade, a new one. Put on so the edge of the blade is over the edge of the block. Just barely sticking out at a nice angle to cut the can. Some people screw these things down. Some people put a nail in them. I just use a bar clamp. I ain't into making permanent jigs for something I just mess around with. So I clamp the blade down, give it a few good squeezes. It's nice and secure. Good. Break a tab off a can. Get your razor knife. Get in that edge. Start to score it. Hold the rim up here. Turn the can around. Turn the can around. Turn the can around. It helps to have a new blade while you're doing this. It certainly is safer to have a newer blade. And this will destroy your blade. So try to get some extra ones on tap first if you need them. I think the razor knives that actually have disposable blades would work a lot better than this. You just snap them off and keep on making new ones. Unless you buy the extra heavy duty Stanley blades. These are just cheap Harbor Freight blades. When you start to get through, you'll be able to push the knife directly into the ridge of the can, as you can see, or maybe not, as you can see. Now, slowly press the knife in around the entire ring of the can. See, here's what happened. See how my knife was going in, and it actually started to cut up in an angle when I put 3 slices in the can. Ruined. That's why I have another can. It's not a matter of if you mess up, it's a matter of when will you mess up. So it's nice to be prepared to have a couple extra pieces around. So we're going to start again. And my knife blade, being the wonderful cheap Harbor Freight crap that it is struggling. I broke through on that one already, believe it or not. But I'm going to score around a little bit more before I start pushing in, because I want to make sure that I have some sort of a defined line to follow. Now sometimes if you cut a line, if you score a good enough line and you start to get this cut through, you can actually take your finger and start pushing on this, and it'll go itself. I find that oftentimes just rips the side of the can up, and you destroy the can like I just did with my knife. So 6 1/2 dozen the other. Really, almost cut myself. Did cut myself. Look at that. Tore skin right off. How do you like that? Having a nice night tonight. The needle nose. Pull that out. Now I'm just pissed. Fucking cans. We got a little bit of debris here. Clean that debris. Tetanus? What tetanus? No such thing. Oh boy, that hurts. Just shave the top layer of skin right off. Alright. No blood, no fun. What they say, right? No blood, no fun. Alright. Got the top of our can cut out. And from there we go. How beautiful is that, right? And nice bloody finger to go with it. Now that's done. 3/4 inch block, 1/4 inch block razor blade. Can, top side, down. Press against. Put your fingers down here. Spin the can on the razor. It's going to immediately start shaving a nice line into the can. Eventually, the little blade is going to poke its way on through the can. As it just did. Okay? Oh, it hurt. Now, this goes back to the whole, so you can push that line and it'll shave itself off nice and clean, as long as it's scored good enough. If you start to see resistance, like what just happened there, go the other direction. And it'll snap off nice and clean. Since we're already bleeding, we'll get our finger in there and we'll pull the edge in like this. Why not? We're already cut. Might as well get cut some more. We got a little piece of scrap debris in there. Somehow a piece of tin got in there. Just use our needle nose to pull that out. That's nice and clean. Now, for the bottom. The bottom needs to be smaller than the top. So what I do, pop our bar clamp, take off the 1/4 inch block. Put the blade right back on, just the 3/4 inch block alone. Put our clamp down, squeeze. A couple good squeezes, make sure it's nice and secure. Wipe the blood off our finger again. Thing's bleeding like crazy. Now, we're going to cut the bottom of the can off. You can use the same can, you can use a different can. You could use the one I screwed up before, don't matter. I'm just going to use the same can. And this time, just use the one hand and slowly run the can around like this. This will probably end up on YouTube Hall of Fame. So I freaking hurt myself trying to make one of these stupid things. Alright. Started to break through. Same rule applies. This time take your index and thumb, get in there, start pushing the opening. Okay? Same thing, get a nice clean edge. Now, at this point you can take all this away. Get it out of your way so you don't hurt yourself or somebody else. We know all about that already. What you got is a base that is 3/4 inch tall and the top part of the can, which is a total of 1 inch tall. They should line up pretty much like this. What you got to do now is you got to cut the inside. Most pop cans will have some sort of vertical line. beer cans have this Miller Lite can has this nice dark blue line. So I'm going to use that with my scissors. I'm just going to cut on the edge of that nice dark blue line, separating that. Now I'm going to roll it inside itself and stick it in here. Let it unspool a little bit so it's nice and loose. And then I find it to be a little bit easier to eyeball this than to measure it and get all technical. Basically, when you're lined up like this, you want the top of this piece of metal to be at the top of this lip, just underneath that golden lip. So what I do is, while loosely holding this thing in here, I just eyeball it. And it looks to me that this is exactly pretty much where the beer starts or stops, right there. So what I do is I will take my marker, lay this out flat. I guess you could probably do the same thing with this being like this too. You could lay it out flat, go like this. And we end up about the same place. So I'm going to take my marker, make a little line right there where the beer starts. You can get technical, you can measure this thing with a millimeter ruler or whatever you want to do. I don't. I'm not too interested in being so precise. You take your straight edge, line it up so the whole can is even against the edge. Make a line. Okay. I'm kind of finicky when it comes to putting stuff back after I use it. Fingers stop bleeding, I think. Dab it one more time and get the rest of that blood off there. And then you got this nice line. Get your scissors. Try to, as carefully as you can, cut this line. You're going to be somewhat accurate with it. A little off isn't going to kill you. But the more accurate you are, the better off you're going to be. Now, do a test fit. Put it inside itself. Hold it into place. Looks pretty close. Mike could shave just a hair off of it. So, see this edge here? You got a little edge right there. So what we're going to do is we're going to come on the other side where this edge is, and we're going to shave just a little bit off. Just a micro shave this edge right off here. Just like this. And we just lost that edge, which is a good thing. And if we do another test fit, like this, looks pretty good. Okay. Sharpie, tuck one end inside the other, get it in there. Bottom ring of the can. You want to make it loose. You don't want it to be tight. Loose is good, tight is bad. Pinch it off where it feels good. Bring a line up the inside of one flap and come on the other side. Bring a line up the outside of the other flap. That's going to tell you where you need to cut. Line. Line. Small scissors, big scissors, it don't matter. Pick a line. I'll pick this line. Cut down the line, halfway down the can. Come the other way, find the other line, go the opposite direction, halfway up the can. And turn bring it so each piece is inside each other, like this. And connect them together. And that forms a nice, tight ring. Next step, you need to make notches to let the fuel flow from the center through the notch in the wall to the outside ring, which you see is nice little ring here. When you pour the fuel in, the fuel goes in, it runs through the notches we're about to cut into the outside, and as it's burning on the inside, it vaporizes the alcohol when it boils and lets it come out and lets it ignite through the jets. That's what we do. I like to start where it overlaps here and here. I like to cut little triangles. One right here. They don't gotta be big. 1/8 inch, 1/4 inch, whatever. Come over to the other side. Another triangle. Okay, 2. And then to the opposite end, one last triangle. 1, 2, 3. 3 is enough. You could do 4. I don't think it's necessary. Triangles will go into the bottom of the can. Okay. Now, the can we screwed up come in handy. You've got to take the top of the stove and you got to gently press it over top of the bottom of this other can, or any other can you might have. Do not press it too hard. It'll get stuck. You might not get it off. Another thing that can happen is that you can split the top of the can. When you split the top of the can, not if. Take a deep breath, start over again. It's going to happen. Put it this way, this isn't the first video I've made of this. I didn't cut myself the last couple times, but so just pressing the can gently until it gets on there with relative ease, which it is right now. It's starting to get on there pretty easy, so I think we're pretty well stretched out. You can rock it like this, you can spin it. Just don't press too hard or you will split your can. I'm not trying to split the can after just getting my finger sliced off, so there you go. Now, we got to turn this into a piece of what looks like stovepipe, so it can fit inside, easier inside the top part. Get your needle nose, get your can, your thumb here, turn away, turn to clockwise, away from your thumb. Thumb holds the tin steady, and you turn away, and it creates a ridge. Try to keep these ridges 1/8 to 1/4 inch apart. Like all things, they don't gotta be perfect. Basically, anybody who's making this stove is into doing this for recycled material purposes, or, Lord forbid, you're in survival mode. Actually, I will use probably one of these stoves that I made for hunting season this year to heat up water for tea or something like that, or to make some cup of noodles or something. So now we have our piece that looks like, see the ridges? Looks like stovepipe. Okay. Triangle side down. The way I like to do this, and the way that I found to be the most, I got a little edge in there I'm going to cut out with these small scissors. There we go. Cut that edge out of there. The way that I find might be a little easier, people like to start by putting the bottom of the stove in and trying to fit the top over the bottom. I like to do the opposite. Make sure notches are up, fit the inner ring around the ring of this stove. Okay, it's harder to get this ring around the ring inside here than it is to get it in here. It's just going to fall in place when you get the bottom on. Now, holding it upside down, do your best to keep this straight as possible. The straighter you keep it, the easier it'll be to get in. Sometimes it takes a little bit of finagling. There, I got mine started. See how it's in all the way around? See? The stretching of the top versus, and also the clamping of the bottom, crimping it in, lets them fit together much easier. And you can see the inner wall needs to be, make sure it's tucked inside the slip. So what I do, I place it down, just go down a little bit at a time, doesn't have to be crazy. Put your thumb, push it all the way in, down some more, down some more. Thumb, work it around, and yes, you could get cut here again. Not to keep dwelling on it, but it happens. Okay. Now, that's down as far as it's going to go. We got a little gap there. The gap is even all the way around. The wall is all the way to the bottom and all the way to the top. If you really want to get nuts, you can take your little piece of wood and you can get yourself a hammer and you can tap it. Don't do it too hard, you'll crush it. Now that is locked. It's not spinning, it's even. Looks pretty good to me. This is your common average dollar store thumbtack. There, zoomed in on it so you can see it. Basically, we're going to use this to put our holes in. What I do is I get our 1/8 inch piece of board, put our stove upside down on the work table, get your Sharpie, draw a line all the way around our stove with our Sharpie. What this does at the most basic level is it gives us a nice even line so we can do some work. Now, take your push pin, pick a spot. More Lite can, there's that nice blue line I was telling you about. And on that line, punch a hole. Go 180 degrees from that line. On the same line, punch a hole. Go over here, punch a hole. Go here, punch a hole. That's 4 holes. Now divide them in half. Punch a hole. It's kind of hard to do this and hold the can on camera at the same time, so just bear with me when I punch the holes. Basically, you are looking for anywhere from 16 to 32 holes. So every time you get a hole, split it, split it, split, split, split. If you don't quite get 32 because your holes aren't even, it's not going to be the end of the world. I'm going to keep putting these holes in. The line just helps you keep it even. Somewhat even. I think we're pretty good there. We got all our holes. The first time you put alcohol in the stove, you can take your finger, wipe around here, and the rim will just, it'll come right off. For example, little bottle, put enough in there to get an ignition. Take your finger, that Sharpie will just wipe right off. Sharpie and denatured alcohol don't get along well. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to basically do a light test on this guy. As you can see, I've poured a little bit of denatured alcohol. Okay, I got this from Ace Hardware right down the street. Alternatively, you can use heat. Basically, it's gasoline antifreeze. If you're going to use heat, it will burn hotter than denatured alcohol. Will boil water slightly faster. It's a little more compact and easy to carry. But if you're going to use heat, buy the stuff in the yellow container. Do not buy the orangish container. It has something different in there that will gum up your stove. This will not leave any residue on the stove. But for this test, we're going to use denatured alcohol. So I'm going to go ahead and take some of the lights off. Okay, you should still be able to see everything. I'm going to get my aim and flame, or you can use a match or a Zippo, whatever you love. Light the center of the can, and as you can see, the can ignites, kind of like one of those little boilers under a chafing dish or something. This takes anywhere from a few seconds to 30 seconds for the stove to self-prime and ignite. The main advantage of the other stoves, or this stove has over the other stoves, is this will ignite and prime itself. The other stoves require a flash pan or you to heat the stove before it will actually do what it has to do, and that can be a pain. As you can see now, it's starting to sputter. Now we got a ring. And as the stove heats, flames will get higher. Now this stove is fully lit. And what I have here is a can. Can't see the can, I don't think, because of the light. I'm going to put that on top of the burner. There's nothing in this can, so I'm not going to leave it on there very long, just to show you that you can put this can directly on top of our stove. You won't need to have any sort of pot stand to boil your water. Just put it right on the stove. Use some kind of grippers, and you can pull the can right off. Now, the one disadvantage of this particular type of stove is that you need to have something to put it out with. You can't just blow this out. I'll do it right now. This is a quick test. Be careful if they're stupid enough to decide to try this. Can't blow it out. Won't let you. So, and the fact of it is, it's still burning, but you can't see the flames during the light. You can kind of see them a little bit because this is a high definition video camera. But you need to have something available to snuff out the flames. That's not a big enough pair of channel locks. Let us get this pair of channel locks. Grab the can, douse the flames. It only takes a couple of seconds of that can being on there to kill the oxygen and douse the flames. And of course, if I had another can sitting around that I didn't just put on the burner, I could have did that with my bare hands. Now this stove will be hot for a little while longer. I mean, it's not really terrible. But just to show you, it did burn up all the little bit of alcohol that I did put in there, which is expected. Without sanding the paint off, there will be a little bit of paint schmutz that comes off. But basically, what happens here is it'll eventually end up looking like my very first prototype that wasn't built so cleverly careful. It's hard to tell, but the paint is pretty much burned off. Now, once again, you could, if you wanted to, take a sanding sponge and sand the paint off. It'll eventually wear its way off the top anyway, so it's up to you if you want to do that. So that's basically it. And as you can see, our stove now is cooled to the point where I can handle it without getting burnt. It really does cool off quickly. Neat little stove. Like I said, I built this in a hurry. Take your time. Hopefully you won't shave the top of your damn finger off like I did during this process. But, you know, no blood, no project. So that's it. Definitely not an expert on this. If you have questions, I can try to answer them. I'm certainly not the authority on this sort of thing. I will tell you that out of all the designs that I have made, other than the one we just did, which is called a side burner pressurized self-priming stove, the best one that requires a primer is this design right here, that has the holes on the top. This one will boil water 5 minutes and 30 seconds, 2 cups with alcohol. This design that I made by just putting a hacksaw across and making notches will boil water in about 6 minutes. Not too bad. This design here that I thought I'd try by placing all the holes on the inside lip, this thing takes like 9 minutes to boil water. Horrible. Might be good for simmering food as opposed to boiling water for food, but it takes a long time. But these guys here can boil water 4 minutes and 30 seconds to 5 minutes and 30 seconds, depending on how cold it is outside. Definitely the best option. And the fact that you don't have to have any sort of pot stand like you do for this one. You know, galvanized metal. We all love to breathe them fumes. Our can is nice and cool now. It requires a stand to boil water with one of these. And of course, if you just put the can on top, the plug to keep the fuel from vaporizing would stop you. But if you were able to do it, it's going to put the stove right out because the flames are shooting up. On these stoves here, that's your filler hole. And once you put the alcohol or whatever in there, you have to just get something to plug it up with. I find a screw works the best because then it gives you something to tote the stove around with. But like I said, this design, obviously, as you see in the video, cup can go right on top of it. You can get your sterno cup, your camper cup. It can sit right there, and since the jets are all on the side, the flame comes around the cup and heats it. I do not drink out of this. This is simply a cup I use for testing. It's an old Stag chili can. Holds exactly 2 cups of water. That's how I was able to come up with my numbers. That's it. If you want to try to make one of these, I highly recommend it. It's no harm. You can use any kind of can. I would avoid using a Coke can. Coke cans do not have a lip that comes in. They have a lip that goes straight down, and that causes fitting issues with the inside wall. Other than that, use any kind of beer can you want. And don't cut yourself. Take care.